guys, kia ora, kia ora, kia ora. I am so excited for this week's podcast episode. I have a special guest on the podcast, my first guest for 2024, actually, Te Kahukura Boynton, aka Maori Millionaire. Welcome to the podcast, sis. No mai hara mai.
Kia ora, sis. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I am so excited to get into it. So, Te Kahukura is a Maori money mentor, and she's 20 years old, an entrepreneur from New Zealand. And I only say 20 years old because I am so impressed by that. Once I found you, and the one thing that kind of stood out to me is firstly your name. The
Oh.
Maori Millionaire. I was like, who is this lady? Like, I need to get to know her more. Started looking at, the content that you were producing, your podcasts, just the stuff that you really talk about. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am obsessed, like absolutely obsessed with you, sis. And I have a list on my notes app, and it's like of all the podcast guests that I kind of want on. And I've had a money mentor or a money coach on there for a very long time. But I really struggled to find someone who looks like me, like, that representation, someone who looks like me, Maori, Pacific Islander, Polynesian, that's kind of in this space. So once I found you, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the universe, like aligning everything. And yeah, it just works so well. So I'm so excited for you to be on here, sis. And I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us, how did Maori Millionaire come about?
Wow, thank you so much for your introduction. You are so kind. I'm so grateful to be here. For those that don't know me, kia ora, my name is Te Kahukura. Here tēnei no ngā Te Kahungunu, ngā tūhoi te whakatohea hoki. Like you said, I'm 20 years old. I started my business, Maori Millionaire, when I was 18 years old. So I dropped out of high school when I was 17 and I moved into uni and I basically had no money, no plans. I was just a reckless teenager who got upset with my school and like just I actually told my principal, I said, hey, like I'm not coming back. And then I went to the office and I said, hey, like I'm not coming back tomorrow. And then they were like, what are you up to? And I went home that day and I was like to my mum, like I quit school today. I signed out. I'm gonna go to uni. Like I hate the school and everything. Just like being a crazy teenager that just wanted to do whatever I wanted to do. And then I went to uni, no plans at all with how I was going to pay my rent or anything, as a normal silly teenager does. And then I realized actually like this is becoming a really big problem because I can't even focus on uni anymore. Like I used to be like a really high achiever and now I can't even focus on uni because I'm always worried about money. And so I started researching it more about why am I so broke and what can I do to get out of this position. And so I started with my own journey. I saved an emergency fund. I started my savings. And then I was like, actually, so many people struggle with their finances. This isn't a problem like just independent of myself. What can I do to help this? And I was also in the middle of wanting to start my own business because I knew that that was another way to start an income stream. So I started Maori Millionaire. It took me 8 whole months of producing free content for whānau. So I would, create vlogs about what I was doing with my money. I would create, story times about how I spent my money. And I did all of this stuff. And it took me a whole 8 months of working for free. I worked 20 hours a week on this business and I made no money, absolutely nothing. And so I kept on going though. And that was my whole thing was never give up, just keep going. And so now it's been a little over 2 years since I started the business, and now I'm full time running the business. I have a social media manager now, so she comes in part time, and she'll come into the office, and I'm like, cool, I can have some work colleagues. It's a bit boring by myself,
Mm.
but yeah, that's a little bit about what my business is and how I got started.
Oh my gosh, I need to repeat, like fucking impressive, like very impressive. Like, well done, sis. I know you're going to be helping so many women really see themselves in you as well and to be inspired by you. So on this podcast episode, I kind of want to talk to the people who maybe are starting out with their money journey to maybe a little bit of the intermediate, and then people who are kind of more advanced that are looking at investing and stuff like
Mm,
that. But I would love to just peel it all the way back and talk about what is money.
mm. Yeah, well, money really is just a transferring value. So, back before colonization and things, we didn't even use money as a means to trade things. We would just trade real resources that we used, like food or labor. It was a bartering system like, hey bro, I'll give you pumpkins from my pumpkin um crop if you give me some meat from your farm. It was a
Mm,
very easy way to transfer things. But what happened was during colonization, we started being colonized on this idea of putia and of money. And so we have this new way of being able to trade. And now we use money more than we use any of those old bartering systems. I still love
mm,
this old bartering system of being able to trade real things, and I still
mm,
do this now as a um, business owner. Actually, I was at the gym and I talked to a personal trainer, and she was talking about her money situation. I said, hey, why don't I give you a budgeting coach and you give me a PT session? And she was like, that is such a cool idea. And I was like, yeah, like, why can't we do this? Like, why can't I give you an hour of my time and you give me an hour of your time? We don't even have to exchange money here.
mm.
um and she was so keen to do that because she had never gone over her budget and things. And so I was like, this is really cool. So I guess to answer your question, what is money? It's really just an exchange of value and being able to transfer that so that everyone can have what they need.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. And that was exactly how it was explained to me. Or not exactly, but a value exchange. And when I found that out, I was like, oh yeah, like it makes sense, right? It was kind of, yeah, that really helped me to kind of work on my money beliefs and my money stuff. So you speak about the impact of, or you speak about colonization, and that's another thing that when I started looking into your mahi, I was like, I love this because that was a part that I didn't really think about as well. So I would love for you to speak about the impact that colonization has had on generational wealth and with money.
Yeah, well, put quite frankly, our biggest asset, which is our whenua, was stolen from us. And so what that meant was that that was a transfer of value, which was given to Pākehā with no exchange of value in return for us. So our land was stolen from us, so our biggest asset was gone. And what that means is that Pākehā could use that asset to grow generational wealth for their offspring. And what that meant for Maori and was that we didn't have that
Mm,
piece of wealth to transfer down the line. And so now what we look at it is, 180, 200 years later, Māori don't have putia, and predominantly or statistically, Pākehā have more wealth than Māori have. And that's why the top 2% of our country own more than 50% of the wealth in the country. These statistics are absolutely appalling, but they're not
mm,
surprising given the history that Aotearoa has faced. And I think that's a really big issue that so many people don't talk about. Why do
mm,
economists, talk about how poor people, Māori, take up so much space in the prison system, and we use so much of, the putia in for benefits? Yet it's not surprising given what we've been through as a
mm,
whole race and a whole culture. So I really look at colonization as a very big cause to why we suffer today and why we are at the top of every negative statistic in this country. That is the
mm,
cause of it. And I think that the only way to move on from this um, is to acknowledge that and then use that to actually create new strategies and to create new plans. Because what this says is that Māori need a new plan. What's happening right now clearly does not work. And I
yeah.
think so many people don't understand that. Like, the only reason half of our prisons are full with Māori is because the system quite clearly does not work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for that. That is, yeah, that is a huge topic to korero on. So thank you for that. I would love to know and I only say this because going through my money beliefs and my money journey, I realized it stemmed a lot from where I grew up and how I
Mm,
was raised and how I saw money kind of as a kid and what was around me. So my background was grew up in the hood. We say it's the hood,
Mm.
but like in state housing, government housing, food grants, WINS, all the things like that, right? So my money beliefs was there's never enough. There's never
Yeah.
enough money. I don't have enough money. And I took that with me years and years. And it wasn't until I actually sat down and was like, wait, like, what's going on here? You know, and backtracking to what do I think of money? Oh, only white people have money. I don't have money. You
Mm,
know, I don't have enough money. Looking at it like, you know, to
mm,
have money or rich is bad kind of thing.
mm.
So I'd love to know, what were your money beliefs growing up and what are they now?
Mm. No, that's a very, very good question, and I think it's quite relatable for a lot of people. So I grew up in similar circumstances from, what you're saying, and as a young person, I quite often heard, the kind of whakaaro around work harder, you'll make more money, or if you're poor, it's because you're not working, or
Mm,
if you want more money, you need to work more hours. And so a lot of these things are around scarcity. So I guess what I think about my childhood and what I you know, put down to being able to grow a wealth mindset from the scarcity mindset that I had when I was a child was down to the books that I was reading. So as a child, my mum would always encourage us to read books over like watching TV. And we had like a rule like during the week we weren't allowed to watch TV like before school, especially that was a big one. She was like, no, what are you doing watching TV before school? You should be reading books. And so we would always read books, and my papa was a real estate investor, and so he had a lot of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like a lot of Robert Kiyosaki books. And so I was 8 years old when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like a little kid, like honestly, should have been playing with my Barbie dolls, but I wasn't. I was reading this book. And so after reading this book, I called my nan and I was like, Nan, what are you making sure that your accounts are like maximizing compound interest? Like, have you got this all sus, Nan? And she was like, yeah, Ko, like you should be at school though. Like, what are you up to? Um, and so I've always kind of had this like really eager side of me when it comes to money. And I always had this like big question in my head. It didn't make sense. Why are some people rich and some people are poor? And when
mm,
I was little, I never understood that because it seems so unfair. Why do some kids go to school with no shoes on and some kids go to school with shoes on? Why do some kids get
mm,
lunch and some kids don't? It didn't make sense to me. And then as I've grown and I've been able to read more books and more books, now I have a very abundant mindset, and I like to look at things and go, think of solutions over problems. So I remember when I was young, and I actually think there's a big correlation between an abundance mindset and positive mental health, and a scarcity mindset and negative mental health. So when I was younger, I often thought with like a victim mentality. So I thought, why did bad things happen to me? Why is, this happening? And then as I've been able to transform into having more of a wealth mindset, now I think, how can I create a solution for this problem? How can I improve whatever's happening at the moment? Like, yes, problems occur, that's inevitable and that's just normal. Everyone has these, but we hold the power to be able to change these. And in all these books that I read, they say things like, rich people are rich because they buy assets. Poor people are poor because they buy liabilities that they think are assets. And the old me used to think that the books were wrong. I used to look at that and go, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. Like, we are struggling. Like, we just want to
mm,
like spend our money, things that make us feel good. And then I realized, like, no, stop blaming, anyone else for my problems and start looking, what behaviors do I have that actually cause me to be in a negative financial position? Like, and I had to ask myself this question, how many of my own actions cause the problems I have today? And that
mm,
was life changing because a lot of my actions were causing the problems I had. But being able to own up to that and being able to go, actually, like, you're missing so much time off work because you vape and you get sore lungs and a sore chest, and then you keep on vaping, and then you're
mm,
complaining about why you're not feeling well. Like, that's just one example of,
mm.
I was doing bad things, they were causing bad results, but then still it was someone else's fault, apparently. So,
Yeah.
looking at ourselves and going, what are the different things that I'm doing to make my life worse, and then changing them. It's a long way around the
Yeah.
question, but yeah. I hope that helps.
No, I love that. Absolutely. And I was actually going to ask if you think that, a poor mindset or you kind of talked about, poor mental health, your mental health isn't that good.
Mm.
But I want to know, do you believe that like a lack of self-belief, a lack of worthiness, a lack of confidence, etc., things like that, do you think that that correlates back to lack of money as well?
Well, it's really interesting because I think these questions are very interesting because how it is and what I used to see in these books I'd read, I go, no, that doesn't make sense. That's not fair, and that doesn't make sense. But I think it actually does. It does have an impact on how effective we are in our work. If you're feeling confident, you're able to negotiate more, a higher paying role. If you feel like you aren't that important and you're not valuable in your workplace, you're never going to ask for a pay rise because you don't even think that you're
Mm,
important.
mm,
Um, and I think so. I think that there is a strong correlation between these two things. And I think that the important thing here is to start small and to go, if you're, because I remember back at the beginning, I didn't think I was important. I didn't think that anything I had to provide was that significant. Like my mental health was down in the dumps totally. And I wasn't able to see that actually every single person in this world, no matter where you come from, no matter who you are, has some type of value that you can provide. Like it
mm,
doesn't matter who you are. You could be, in and out of prison, whatever it is, quote unquote, in terms of society, a bad person, you still have something you can provide to the
mm,
world. And I didn't understand that. But now that I'm able to have confidence that, I'm providing help to the world in a way that I can, I'm providing as much as I can do, and that helps me to build my confidence. It's helped me to earn more money. It's helped me to do all these things. So, looking at my own life, yep, totally agree. And then looking at statistics of other people in their own lives, it also happens there. I read a statistic that if you go to the gym 3 times a week, you're statistically more likely to earn more money than someone who doesn't, which is insane.
mm,
What does going to the gym have to do with making money? That's what I thought when I read that. I was like, that's silly. Like, it's insane. But what it actually shows is that if you can go to the gym 3 times a week, you're able to be consistent, you're able to show up, you're able to not make excuses, you're able
mm,
to push through hard things, you're able to have that mindset of I deserve self-care. I deserve to look after myself. You're able to prioritize your time. And those are the things that help you to make more money. It's not got nothing to do with actually like lifting weights or anything, but it's about being able to push through hard things and then do them regardless. And now I've actually started doing that, and I started my whole journey last year where I started with just walking once a day, like 5 minutes, and I was naked. Like at the start, I'd walk 15 minutes, I'd go home and have a nap because I was so tired. And now I can go to the gym, go on a walk every day, and my brain actually craves hard things because I know I can do it. It's hard, but I can do it.
ooh, I love that so much, sis. Oh, you're speaking so much facts. I love that so much. Thank you. You spoke about Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor
Mhm.
Dad, and I remember listening. I think I was listening to one of your podcasts, and you talked about, that that book was given to you. And a similar thing with me. I was actually given the book. I think I was in intermediate. Actually, I was like third form, so 12 or 13, and my dad gave it to me, and I thought he was crazy. I was like, why is he giving me this big book that says Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Like, I just didn't get it and I didn't read it. And then
Yeah.
it wasn't until I started my money journey and working on myself. This was like 6, 7 years ago now. And I read it for the first time and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I read this sooner. And I always
Yeah.
refer back to it as well. I keep going back. I've read it probably 4 or 5 times now because it's so freaking good. But what are some money books that you recommend?
Oh yes, Rich Dad Poor Dad, definitely. The Barefoot Investor is a great like beginner book to get started, like talking about sinking funds and all of those things.
Mm,
Start with Why by Simon Sinek is a very, very good book. Love that book. And he talks about your why needing to be like superior to anything else. And so like if you look at not McDonald's, um, sorry, Apple, the reason that they've been so successful is because they are different to any of the other technology brands because they provide a difference, and their whole like business branding is around being different to the status quo. And so
Mm,
that's why people work, because they know that it looks different. It feels different when you're playing on it. The apps look different. The
mm,
camera is different. Everything is different. And I really like that. Um, yeah, start with Why, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Barefoot Investor. Honestly, I haven't read a bad money book. They are all
mm,
amazing. Like you go to your local bookstore, go to the money section. If you have like $10, like sometimes you can pick them up for $5 each. Just buy any of them. Like they all have
mm,
really good tips in all of them. Um, and even if you don't agree with them, read more and more, because some books will say, you want to get so much debt and then that's how you're going to get rich. And then other books will say you don't want debt at all. Debt is a bad thing. They all say completely different things. And the whole purpose of reading is you want to be able to read like a wide variety of topics and be able to make decisions for yourself and go, okay,
mm,
I've actually read 50 books about money, and three of them said that debt is bad. 10 of them said that debt can be used as leverage to build wealth. Like, and you're able to make your own decisions based off of all of the research you've done. So I wouldn't say there's
mm,
even any bad money books. Like just read
mm.
them all, as many as you can.
Nice. And so I've found finances,
Yeah.
religion, and politics are like three things that people say, don't talk about this with your peers. Why do you think that money or finances is in there?
I think that it's controversial and it's really difficult to talk about these things. When we're talking about money, some people are making, I think the median wage for Maori households is like, or per individual is like $30,000 or something a year, which is insane. I don't know how you can live off $30,000 a year. But my point being is that we have some people earning 30K a year, and then we have other Maori earning 150K a year. How are we supposed to talk about these things when it's not an even playing field? And so many people are doing so amazing with their money. They have savings, they have investments, they have a diversified portfolio. And then at the other end, we have people who can't pay their rent and can't feed their children. And so we're not able to have a discussion about it because it's so difficult to be have a level playing field and talk about these things. But
Mm,
in saying that, I would encourage people to have those discussions regardless, because when you do that, you can actually see, actually, I was assuming that this person was doing fantastic with their money, but actually they're really not. And I've had these
mm,
discussions with some of my friends. One of my friends I thought was like super rich. And I just always made these assumptions about her because she would always spend heaps of money and she would always be on trips and she'd always be on holidays. But I talked to her and we had open discussions about money. And I realized she's actually not that rich. Like, she's not as rich as I thought she was. She has a
mm,
big spending problem, but she doesn't have much saving. She doesn't have many investments. And so once we spoke about it, I was able to go, actually, like, I have more money than this person because I've saved it. This person may seem like they have more money because they spend it all. They don't actually, but we weren't able to actually see that without talking about it. And then for that person, they were able to see, wow, I always thought that you were like kind of broke because you never went out, you never spent your money, you never um went on trips, or I do sometimes go on trips, but like I'm very mindful about where I spend my money. And so she thought maybe I didn't have money, and I thought she has heaps of money, but we were
mm,
completely wrong about both people. And so I would really recommend anyone to have the hard conversation, because you're able to learn so much. And like, what's the worst that could happen? You get a bit jealous that someone has more money, or you get a bit embarrassed that they think that you have less. Like, who really cares?
mm. Yeah. And with my journey as well. So when I moved to Melbourne about 6 years ago, I was in so much debt. I was broke as fuck. I
Mhm,
was in $60,000 worth of debt, and I was so embarrassed. I was so
mhm,
ashamed, and I was
mhm.
carrying. It was like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. Like,
Yeah.
oh, everyone thinks I have money, but I don't have money, And it wasn't until I started sharing that, I shared it with my partner, and it was kind of like he was just like, oh wow, like it wasn't until I started facing it and sharing it
Yeah.
and being with it that I was like, okay, how can I get this money down? How can I create solutions? How can I make more money? How can I, and you get into that solutions mindset. So instead of, being like ashamed of it or pushing it to the side, it's like face it head on, share
Mhm.
it with people. people are open for you to come to them and kind of share that and be vulnerable. And it actually made me feel better. Like I was like, oh, like, so you don't think I'm such an idiot for getting myself in this position? So yeah, I would, like you said, really recommend to share that. And then on the back of that as well, the job that I'm currently in, I just asked a guy that I work with, I asked him straight up, bro, how much do you get paid? Because I wanted to know if we were getting
Yeah,
paid the same.
yeah,
And the people you work for don't want you to talk about that, because
no,
say he was getting more than me, I would then go and be like, hey, this guy's getting paid more than me. Why am I not on the same wage?
yeah,
Like, give me more, kind of thing. And, talk about it. So we talked about that. And then I was like, well, while we're here, how much do you pay for your power? How much do you pay for your water? And then we started sharing tips. Like, I was like, oh,
yeah,
your Wi-Fi bill is so much cheaper than mine. Who are you with? Like, stuff like
yeah.
that. And I
So
found that
good.
really helpful as well. Right. So yeah, it is so important. And I would recommend just having the talk about it. It's really good.
That's so true and so important. I remember actually there was this girl who started at one of these jobs I had once, and she started on a higher rate than me, but I had already had 2 years of experience in that role. And so I was like, why is this new girl? Like she had absolutely no experience in the industry. Why is she getting paid more than me? And then I went and spoke to my boss and I was like, hey, like I know that the, the new girl is getting paid $2.50 an hour more than me.
Mhm.
Um, I want my rate to be higher than hers, considering I've got more experience. And then my boss said, oh my God, that was like a mistake. Like I didn't mean to do that. It was rectified that day. And I ended up getting like a $5 pay rise because it had to be more than what the new girl was getting paid. And I was
Nice.
like, wow, just by having this conversation, I was able to do that, which, $5 an hour if you're working 40 hours a week is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Don't ask
Nice.
me the math because I don't know,
Yeah.
but
I was gonna say that too. I have no idea. It's just
I
a
think
lot
it's
of money.
$200. Yeah, I think it's $200. Yeah.
Awesome. So we talked about, some of our people, or actually, I was in this position when I was in New Zealand as well. I lived paycheck to paycheck. And I just, you live paycheck to paycheck, you have this debt as well, and you kind of see no way out. It's like, oh, like, how do I get myself out of this position? I want to be in a better space. So,
Mm,
what would some of your advice be to people who are listening right now? They're like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I've still got debt that I need to pay
mm.
as well. I see no way out. I want to live my life and do all these things. What would you say to them?
I would say that you can't budget your way out of poverty. So many people in the finance industry just say, oh, you just need to create a better budget. You just need to stop buying coffee and then you'll be able to solve your problems. I do not agree. I think that the best thing you can do to get started in your finance journey is to start making more money. If you have more money coming in, you have more money to allocate to different places, you have more money to pay off debt, you have more money to save your emergency fund. And I just see it as like the best way to get started. Um, I think that it's not the only thing you can do because I've also seen many people, especially in our community, when we look at like Maori doctors, if we weren't taught how to be good with money when we were children, it doesn't matter if we start making 200 grand. If we don't know how to look after our money, that 200 grand disappears. So I'm not saying it is like a golden, cure for this, but I'm saying it's a great way to get started. But alongside increasing your income, I would also say their education is key. So reading those books, learning, like listening to podcasts, make it part of your daily routine. If you want to be financially successful, you are not going to get there by, willy-nilly going, oh, maybe once a month I'll read a page in this book. No, you have to
Mhm.
do it every single day and you have to learn these skills so that you can make better financial decisions. So I'd say work on increasing your income. So many different ways. I've got many podcasts about side hustles and how you can increase your income. So many different things you could do online, like captivate the online world, use social media to your advantage. What kind of business can you create that, uses social media? Because it's a free marketing tool. That's what it is. So many people will say, oh, I don't want my face on the internet. You don't have to have your face on the internet. You can create a business online that does not have your face on it. So once you start increasing your income, actually alongside increasing your income, you want to be leveling up your mindset, investing any extra money you're making from here straight back into yourself, into your mindset, into learning more, going to courses, going to seminars, reading books, hanging out with like-minded people. It's a very holistic journey. You can't just do one thing and expect it to
Mm,
change your life. You have to have multiple things going at the same time. Increasing your income, increasing the amount of knowledge you have in your mind, reducing your expenses. That might even be something that you start doing. Is there an
mm,
expense that you've got that you don't need to have? Like I used to vape, and I knew that vaping was really bad for my health, but it was also, an ongoing expense of $20 a week, which is $1,000 a year. That $1,000 could be spent on something far more useful.
mm.
So it's a holistic journey, but those are some of the things that I'd encourage to get started in this huarahi.
Nice. And your podcast is freaking incredible. I would highly recommend for everyone to go and listen to your podcast. Honestly, every episode, I'm like,
Thank
this girl is on fire. Like it's so good. So I would recommend it 100%. I'd love to know, what do you think is the biggest waste of money?
Oh, this is a tricky question because I think that I don't want to put anything in that category. I think that it's a waste of money if you believe it is, because I see so many people who spend so much money on certain things. And I'm like, why are you doing that? It doesn't make sense. But when you talk to them about why they're spending the money on that thing, they have really great answers. And here's the
Mm,
thing, I practice this model called value based spending. Does it provide me value? Yes, I can spend my money on it. Does it provide me value? No, that means I can't spend my money on it. So, books, I spend so much money on books. I would say the average book is about $30 a week. On average, I'd probably buy a book a week, which is a lot of money. That's more than I was spending on vaping. So many people would say, oh, that's a waste of money. I would say no, because every single book, I learn how to make money from it.
mm,
I think I've estimated I've got like $3,000 worth of books, but in my first year of business, I made $30,000, in my business. So if you just use that as like a ratio, I bought most of those books in my first year of business. So I 10x my income, based on spending that much money on books. I was able to make that. And then in year two, this doubles, triples, and starts going up exponentially. But it only happens if you have that education there. So I don't
mm,
want to tell anyone that they're wasting money on anything. I would say, look at your values. Does it align with your values? If it is, you will know the things in your life that you're wasting money on. For me, it was vaping, takeaways. Why was I stopping at a dairy to buy drinks almost every day? What purpose did
mm,
that provide? Absolutely nothing. So fill up your water bottle at home. Those are the things that I was wasting money on. But everyone has different things. And I know, what you're wasting money on.
mm.
Everyone does. But that's for you to decide.
Nice. I love that value-based spending. What's one thing you think that people get so wrong about money?
Oh, I heard you say it earlier in this episode about rich people being bad, and I think this is a very common korero in whānau Maori, Pasifika, and it's one that I've talked so like a lot with my mum, because she's of that very traditional mindset. Rich people are bad, and rich people don't spend their money for good things. And what I've learned in my own journey is that when you have money, you amplify what you were before money. So if you're Maori and you're a giving person and you love to help people, and say you're on the benefit and maybe every week you're buying something nice for someone else, and you've only got $300 to budget with, or whatever it looks like, as soon as you start making 300 grand a year, a lot of those habits that you had at the start will still be there. So if you used to give $30 away a week, you might make enough money to start giving $100 away. It it's about what are you before you have money, because that's what gets bigger and bigger. So if you're a bad person before you have it, you're going to be a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
Money is not the thing we should be hating. Money is literally just a piece of paper. It is just an exchange of value. We shouldn't hate money, but it's about the wrong people having money. And if we want to balance this field, then we just need to make sure that more people in minority cultures, or more people of, with disabilities, or from a diverse range of experiences has money. We need to diversify where money in our community is. And I think that will contribute to money being spent on better things. So imagine if we had all Maori and Pacifica that were millionaires, we are already kind people. We already look after other people. If we all had $1 million, our whole country would be a better place to be in. But because people who aren't kind before they have money get money, it's not shared. But
Mm.
that's nothing against money. That's just about the people who have it.
Yes. I love that so much. I actually had goosebumps because I was like, fuck, she's so right. This is so right. This is the truth right here. Honestly, thank you so much.
I get so
I
excited to see like so many multi-millionaires. I can just predict like, 20, 30 years down the track. As because my business isn't the only business doing this. We've got so many the hidden figures on, Instagram.
yes.
They post so much content about this. And I can just see, in 10 years, we have so many Maori and Pacifica whānau who are doing better with their money. Then we've got this redistribution of wealth, which is this redistribution of values, because that's what you're able to do when you have money.
Mm,
Um, we're able to just create a better world for our babies to grow up in. And how many domestic violence call outs happen because of money stresses? How many
mm,
marriages fail because of money stresses? How many uninsured cars are driving on the road because they don't have enough money for insurance? These
mm.
things contribute to bigger problems and bigger problems, and then we wonder why all these statistics say that we're bad people. But yeah, I think that this is a great corridor to be having, and I think we should be having more discussions like this, more frequently.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Now, I asked a few people around me what they would ask if they had a money mentor in front of me. And here are the questions. So, one was, what are you currently investing in?
Awesome. So at the moment, I've taken a break from investing in the stock market, which is what I was initially doing. And now all of my money gets reinvested in my business. So at the moment, I'm working on growing my business to become a fully sustainable business that doesn't require me as much as it does at the moment. So at the moment, I've kind of created a full-on job for myself where I have to work not quite, it depends on the week, but around 40 hours to keep this business running. I want to be able
Mm,
to reduce how much the business relies on me by hiring more people so that I can spend my time more effectively. Like if I was able to spend, 20 hours a week researching and learning about these things, how much more valuable could I be for my business and being able to create
mm,
better content? So I want to reduce how much the business needs me, but that requires an investment to be able to hire more people. So I've got one person on my team. I've got a goal to have 5 people in my team. Actually, no, I've got 2 people on my team. Sorry, my podcast editor and my social media manager. And I want to have 5 people in my team so that the business can operate, because I always think like if I had a heart attack, this business, what's gonna happen? No podcast for you next
mm.
week.
Yeah.
um, so it's about like forward planning and succession planning. So at the moment I'm investing in my business and allowing that to grow.
Nice. Love it. And what would some tips be? What would you give? What am I trying to say? What are some tips you have? What are some tips that you have to creating multiple streams of income?
I would get my phone out and write on a note on your notes app. You write out 100 different ideas. How can I create a new income stream? Go through the whole list and go, okay, that one's out of the list because it takes too much time. This one's out of the list because you need money to get it started. This one's out of the list, and you start culling the list down until you have like 15 on that list. And then what I want you to do is go through that list and go, okay, the first one, selling cupcakes. Figure out how much is it going to cost me to buy the cupcake material? How much can I sell the cupcakes for? How much profit can I make? How many cupcakes would I need to make a week to be able to make, say, an extra $500? And then do this for all of those, say like 15 of them. And then you just find like the top three, and then it might be you might trial them. So um, I don't think cupcakes is very profitable, but let's just say cupcakes was the profitable one on that list. Trial the
Mhm.
cupcakes out for a month or so, see how much money you make. Do you find that maybe you're messing up your kitchen too much and then you're spending too much time cleaning, so it's not actually that profitable? So try things out, and then see what works best for you. But I really like this list of creating a long list, 100 ideas,
Mm,
because you become very creative. You're like, um, And one of my friends did this. So we chat quite frequently about how we're becoming millionaires, and we chat all the time. Like, and so she messaged me the other day and she was like, "Sis, I made 16 grand this month." And I was like, "Go you." And it was only like 3 months ago, before she sent me that message, that we were writing out this list of 100 ways we could boost our business income. Like, it
Nice.
happens very quickly, this transformation in income. So yeah, that's something that I would really recommend, writing out the list.
Nice. I love that. What's the best mistake you made when it comes to money?
Oh, when I was in high school, I actually, but so this was before I dropped out of high school and before I went to uni with no money. I actually had an emergency fund. I had $3,000 sitting in an emergency fund when I was about 16, 17. So from part-time jobs I had saved up $3,000. I was so proud of myself and I was so happy. And I thought, cool, when I go to uni one day, I'm going to have this emergency fund. And then I had a big mental health crisis and I thought, I don't even want to be alive, like, in a year's time. So I don't need this money. So I spent it all. I spent all of it, every single last cent. And that right there is a problem in my mental health and not being able to manage that correctly to be able to ensure that my finances weren't messed with. But
Mm,
that's something that consistently along my journey, I've realized, because that's not the only time when my mental health has affected my finances. And what it
mm,
taught me was that your mental health needs to be prioritized and you need to figure out strategies to overcoming it. And money can't be that because, so many times I've thought, oh, it's just a terrible day today. I just want to go shopping because that'll make it better. It doesn't make it better, really. It just
mm.
makes you feel good in the day, but then the next day you're broke. So you're like, oh, what do you do? So, creating solutions, solutions that do not involve money. So now my solutions are going for a walk, that's free, going to the gym, only costs $20 a
Mm,
week. Um, Going for a swim in a lake, free things that I can
mm,
do that help my mental health that don't involve spending my whole emergency fund. But then also understanding that every mistake you have is recoverable. My life didn't end when I spent my when I spent my emergency fund. I regrew one. I made a new one. Like,
mm,
your life doesn't end when you make financial mistakes. So I want to normalize that, people, finance content creators make mistakes too. I make mistakes.
mm.
Everyone makes mistakes. Don't beat yourself up.
What's some easy budgeting advice for someone who sucks at budgeting?
Oh, it all comes back to the phone. So on my notes app, I have one which has income and expenses. So you have your list of income. So it might be, your job, it may be your side hustle. Then put your total there, and then you go into the expenses category, write out the whole list of things. And I would recommend having it split into three different columns. So the first one are your regular expenses that come up. So your power bill, your rent, what, even if they fluctuate a bit, roughly what they are going to be every single month or week.
Mm,
You write that down. And then in the second category, this is kind of my being smart with money category. So one of them is an AP to a koha account. So this is for, if there's a tangi that comes up, I will always have money in my koha account to contribute,
mm,
because one thing I found was that if I was broke and a tangi came up, it's actually really bad, but I would worry more about the fact that I didn't have money to give than about the actual tangi itself. So I knew that I needed to plan for koha. I needed to always have money there. So I do an AP to my koha account, an AP to my car account, which is, I worked out the average cost of running my vehicle over a year, which is around 5 grand a year, which is like $100 a week. No one really understands how expensive it is to run a vehicle until you add up the calculations. So $100 a week goes into my car account, which is also where I get gas out of, my WAF, my rego, car maintenance. And then I also have, my fun account. So if I want to go traveling, there could be an AP to that account, an account for my holder. So if, the doctors comes up, I like to split everything off, because when I see money in my main account, I just want to spend it. So I have to put it into these specific accounts so that I can keep myself accountable. And then when I want to transfer it out of those accounts, like, oh, I can just surely borrow $20 from my car account, it makes me feel bad because I can see on my bank, I put the photo on it. So my car account has a picture of the car that I
mm.
want.
Nice.
Um, And when I take money out of it, you know, that's not what someone who drives this kind of vehicle would do, would they? They wouldn't be borrowing money
Mm.
from it. And so it's it keeps me accountable. So that's the first thing. First, your regular expenses that always come up. Second is paying to those accounts. So some people call them sinking funds. It doesn't really matter what you call them. And then the last bit is your saving. Also, that's already kind of your savings, but you're investing. So how are you going to use the remainder of your income to increase your future income or build assets for you? So if you don't have enough money for that last category of investing, that is fine, because that's actually really good that you're able to pay all your bills and you're able to do
Mhm.
everything. But this is the key that will get you to financial success. You know, being able to pay your bills every week is just enough to get by. It's not enough to become, you know, financially successful. So this
Mm.
last key bit, it might be spending $100 on growing my business a week, or it might be spending $100 in the stock market. It might be putting $100 away so I can buy a house. You have to decide what is the best way to spend your money at the moment for the most amount of reward for you. And if you can't afford to do that based off your income, that's when I would go back to the start and go, how can I boost my income? And think very creatively about what are the key actionable tasks you can do to increase your income.
Mm. Love that. And you kind of talked on this. You said, there are moments where you're like, I'm going to take $20 out of my car. But then you're like, no, who is the person? Like, what is the person who has this type of car? What does she do? What does she do for herself and stuff like that? So I think that's really good, getting into that mindset when you're trying to take away. But what would some other tips you have around sticking to the budget when you want to take out from certain areas and go on a shopping spree and stuff like that?
I think the best one to be able to stick to your budget is automation. So having an AP, you know, I don't manually transfer it to these accounts because that's dumb. Like, why would I want to take money
Mm,
away from me? I want to, you know, and that's part of it. It's like accepting we are, you know, we're girls. We want to go and buy, like, we want to get our nails done. We want to go do all that fun stuff, but we also have to understand that delayed gratification is the only way to being able to achieve that long term.
mhm,
I calculated one time because I, like, when I was in high school making $150 a week at McDonald's, I would always have my lashes done, my nails done, like all of these things, but I had not much money. And so
mm,
the thing is if I'm able to spend 5 years working on building my business and growing like generational wealth, after that, I'll be able to get my nails done, my lashes done whenever I
mhm,
want. And I'll be able to do that as frequently as I want, and it won't be a problem. But I won't be able to get there if I spend all my money on just fun things now. There is a level of sacrifice you have to make to be able to get to success. You can't, it's not free. If it were free,
mm.
everyone would be successful. But you have to be able to work and put in and sacrifice and, you know, make those tough decisions about who you're hanging out with, what influences are you having in your life, all of those things. Success, financial success, any kind of success, it's not free. You have to put something in.
Absolutely. And I am mindful of time, but I just want to ask one more question. Sis, I had so many questions. I want to ask you more and more, but I know you have places to be as well. But if you could teach money at school, I
Oh,
talk about this all the time. I wish we learned some sort of money advice and shit at school if there was a class for money.
mhm.
What would you teach? What would the curriculum be?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. And I think the key point here is that they purposely don't teach us in school, because
Mm,
if they did, we would be rich, and then we wouldn't, like, I've had this whakaaro for a while. If all Maori and Pacifica, if we all relocated to like where our marae and stuff are, in the city, our McDonald's, our like picking up rubbish, all of these industries would be shut down because
mm,
we operate them. Like indigenous people predominantly, you know, operate those minimum wage jobs. So the economy would fail in all of these areas, and we would boost things in our where our marae are and in those indigenous kind of areas. And also all our Maori doctors, our Maori nurses, our Maori lawyers, we would all be relocating home. And therefore those
mm.
communities would be able to flourish. But to answer your question, um, I would teach children how to really understand money and how it works in society and what the purpose of it is. And I would probably use like a framework of Robert Kiyosaki's, his first rule of Rich Dad Poor Dad is that rich people do not trade time for money. And
Mm.
that's one of the biggest things, the most influential things that I think that Rangatahi Māori or Pacifica could use that would really, really benefit us. Because as Māori and Pacifica, we think of things in a per hour thing. We think, okay, $20 per hour, $800 per week. That's how much it gets. But when you have an abundance mindset, you think, okay, I could make $20 sale here if I hire someone else to do the sales for me. I could sell, X amount of product per week, and I could be making $1,500 a week, but only, work it here and there. We got to think smarter
Mm.
because we have limited resources of limited time, limited energy, and we want to leverage that to make the most out of it. So I would teach these children about how money system works, how the markets work, and how they can use what they have, leverage what they have to make more.
Love that. I love that so much. And I love that I love the mahi that you do today. I know you have your podcast, which I highly recommend for everyone listening to go and listen to that. It's freaking incredible. I know you have courses as well. So you have Warrior Fitness course coming up in March. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about that and then tell us where people can find you. And then I'll let you go, sis. Sorry.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so I have a Warren of Finance course, which is a 4-week course. So we meet every Friday night for an hour and a half and we go over everything that I teach. So we go over delayed gratification. How can you grow a wealth mindset? How can you level up your finance game? We go over budgeting, all the simple things. But it's a very beginner level course, very friendly. Our youngest person in the course for our last cohort was 14 years old. And on the same day that she finished the course, she went and set up her business. She sent it to me and she says, like, look at my new business and stuff. And I looked at it. She's 14 and she started a whole business.
Nice.
She's teaching, she loves poetry. So now she's teaching people about poetry as a 14-year-old. Like, this is insane. But this course changes people's lives. And I'm so excited to be relaunching in March again, to have a new cohort of people who are changing their lives. But I guess everyone's probably sick of me, so I'm talking too much now. But if you want to have a look at my content, check out Maori Millionaire at Maori Millionaire with an underscore. I'm on every single social media platform. I also have a website, www.maorimillionaire.com, and my podcast, Maori Millionaire Podcast. But always happy to connect with new people. So just reach out, give me a follow, or give me a message, or anything like that. It's been such a privilege to talk to you today. I'm so grateful. And for everyone listening in today, it's been lovely chatting. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you, sis. Like I said, you're fucking so inspiring. You're incredible. You're amazing. You're changing the game. You're changing people's lives. And yeah, honestly, you give me goosebumps when you talk your talk. And yeah, it's honestly being so good. I know you're going to help so many women today on this podcast as well. So
Oh,
thank you, sis. Ngā mihi nui kia koe.
thank you so much for having me. Aroha nui.